The Lightbearer DLC follows Nick Lightbearer, Wellington Wells' resident rock and roll legend who we very briefly met in the main game. The only problem is, we saw him die. Maybe. In Act 1 of the main game, Arthur Hastings broke into his house to try and get Nick to fulfill his Simon Says duties at the local church. Nick goes to take a bath with a power cell and electrocutes himself, so Arthur believes Nick is dead. In Act 2, Sally breaks into Nick's house sometime after Arthur had, and finds Nick still in the bath, only she thinks he's unconscious. In fact, she hears him snoring. Now, neither Arthur nor Sally is particularly reliable, so who's correct is up for debate. Either way, the Lightbearer DLC takes place after Nick has electrocuted himself, so whether it's a dream or his afterlife is up to you. Nick wakes up in a hotel room in Hotel Avalon during a Nick Lightbearer fan convention. He hallucinates a woman sleeping next to him, which turns into a rat, who is actually his ex-agent Virgil Dainty. The naming of this character is a fairly clear reference to Virgil, the guide in Dante's Inferno, the story of a man making his way through hell. Even Lightbearer is another name for Lucifer, so old Nick should be quite at home. However, Nick is covered in blood and he panics when he hears a hotel employee banging on the door due to his bath overflowing and flooding the ballroom below. Nick resolves to escape the hotel as he can't remember what happened and why he is covered in blood. He had written a note to himself in the form of lyrics and thinks that if he can remember the tune, it will jog his memory of the night before. Nick leaves the room via his secret exit, stumbling across a fan trapped in the vent who is trying to get into his room. Nick promises to send help, then escapes the hotel via the trash chute and plans to go home, passing many fans on the way. Nick instead comes across the Nick Lightbearer Museum, which may be a grim prediction of what will happen to his real home in Wellington Wells if he is dead. Inside the museum, Nick finds a change of clothes and his stash of drugs, taking one before being confronted by his ex-wife Petunia. The pill Nick took shrinks him, and Nick has to traverse the museum to find another pill to restore him to normal size. Before Nick can take the second pill, he is confronted again by his ex-wife and forced to fight her by throwing his golden discs. Defeating Petunia, he finds that he was actually fighting a compliment machine. Leaving the museum, Virgil berates him for not trying to remember, and Nick says he can't play the song he wrote due to his amp being wet. Nick does agree to go buy a new amp from the music shop, but unfortunately the owner, Richard Bates, hates Nick due to his wife Kitty being attracted to him. Being refused an amp from the music store, Nick recalls that he had another amp at the hotel that was taken by the manager. Nick goes to the hotel to reclaim this amp, disguising himself as a bellboy, and distracting the manager by calling over the PA system that there is a fan stuck in the vents. Nick looks for the amp in the manager's office, but he has taken it back to his room. Nick starts to head to the manager's room, but since he is wearing a bellboy outfit, he is instead directed to take one of the Bobby's bags to his room. This room happens to be next door to the manager's. Entering the Bobby's room, Nick finds a note and a crime wall about the serial killer Foggy Jack, who is suspected of killing a man and placing his body in the arms of the Nick Lightbearer statue in front of the hotel. Nick finds a secret passage between the Bobby's and manager's rooms, and after accessing the manager's room, collects his amp. Strumming the tune to the song he wrote, Nick has a flashback and knows he needs to head to the park. Heading to the hotel park, Nick finds a crime scene and the body of Virgil lying in his statue's arms. This triggers a flashback from the night before, and Nick is unsure if he was the one to kill Virgil. At the end of the flashback, Nick is back in his hotel room. Nick also finds that he's written some more lyrics. He decides to head to the bar to get his head straight, and he comes across his former band member, Maury Memento. This character's name is another clue that Nick is no longer among the living, as Memento Mori means remember death or remember you are mortal. Mori is playing the song from Nick's dreams but isn't able to do so well as the piano needs tuning. Nick offers to go retrieve the piano tuner in return for Mori playing the song properly. On his way to retrieve the piano tuner, Nick finds a bowl of what appears to be blackberry joy, but after taking it has vivid hallucinations, so perhaps it was another drug, or maybe this was a bad interaction with all the other drugs that Nick is on. After the hallucination ends, Nick retrieves the piano tuner, and Maury plays the tune, causing Nick to remember it being played on the rooftop. Nick heads to the rooftop to find the body of Richard Bates, along with the bellboy outfit Nick had been wearing the day before. Having another flashback, Nick sees glimpses of the murder of Richard Bates before again waking up in his hotel room, this time seeing the body of Kitty Bates beside him. Nick now believes that he is a killer and decides to warn people before he can harm anyone else. Nick crashes the Nick lookalike competition and attempts to provide this warning, but is mistaken for another lookalike. Nick goes to flee again, this time heading into the kitchen and using the dumbwaiter to get to the basement. In the basement, Nick finds the killer's lair, and when he tries to leave the basement, he instead finds himself in hell. Trying to escape hell, Nick comes across a church where he is approached by Foggy Jack. Nick panics and backs away until he falls through the floor, and finds himself back in the hotel's hedge maze. Jack appears and admits that he is the killer and says that he was killing Nick's peskiest fans in the hopes that Nick would write a song about him. Jack is disappointed, Nick doesn't want to be friends, and says instead Nick will be his next trophy. Nick makes his way through the hedge maze to find the stage at the center where he will face off against Jack. Nick is able to finish Jack off with Virgil urging Nick to avenge him and turning Nick's amp up to 11. With Jack defeated, Nick performs his concert proclaiming that from now on he will be a whole new Nick Lightbearer, before seeming to ascend into a beam of light. And that's where Nick's story ends. I think it's fairly safe to say that none of the events of this DLC actually happened in the real world of Wellington Wells. It was either all a dream or it was Nick's experience after he died. Personally, I do think he was most likely dead the whole time, but what do you think? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on my next video, which will be on the third DLC, We All Fall Down.